Welcome to LBMC Cybersecurity Sense podcast. This week, we will be discussing attacker dwell time and methods that you can address it. My name is Bill Dean, Senior Manager here at LBMC Security. While I'm involved in various aspects of our security services, I'm also the practice lead for our incident response, forensics, and litigation support practice. So this week, there is a HIEWATCH, HIEWATCH article with the headline of Clinic Discovers Network Breach That Lasted 15 Months. In my career of 10 years of working incidents, I've seen this over and over and over, especially with cleared contractors and now quite a bit in healthcare. This article, of course, the link will be in the show notes, highlights what a lot of people are seeing. So cyber attacks on healthcare IT systems are headline-grabbing events that can lead to exposure of patient data, service disruption, time-consuming recovery processes, and high costs in the form of paying a ransom or spending money on new servers, security systems, or security consultants. But that is only when the victim is aware of the breach. Peachtree Neurological Clinic, or PNC, discovered a 15-month breach as the Atlanta-based provider was investigating a recent ransomware attack when it was discovered. And we all know how rampant ransomware is in healthcare at this point. They were investigating a ransomware attack and found there had been attackers on their network for 15 months. So while they were able to restore the encrypted files and there were no further indications of the malware, the attackers had dwelled on their network from February 2016 until May 2017. So then the article goes on to state that the clinic was unable to determine which, if any, patient files or information were accessed during the 15-month-long breach, but noted that patient's name, address, telephone number, social security number, date of birth, driver's license number, treatment or procedure information, prescription information, and or healthcare information could have been exposed. After customers or patients were notified of this, I'm pretty sure that they weren't very concerned about the ransomware infection at all. As we've seen numerous times, some network breaches can go on for months or even years when the adversary is seeking extremely valuable information, such as personally identifiable information or EPHI, as we've heard in this article, intellectual property, and even credit card numbers over the past few years. So one way to kind of go after this is just to start looking for the attackers. So to kind of get into that, the time elapsed between the initial breach of a network by an attacker and the discovery of that breach by the victim is known as dwell time, or the breach detection gap. FireEye, which is an international incident response firm, cites a dwell time as 156 days on average globally. Think about that, 156 days that an attacker or an adversary is on your network, acted as though they're one of your employees, siphoning off your data. To make matters even worse, TrustWave reported that 81% of the intrusions are not even detected by internal security processes, but rather by news reports, law enforcement notifications, which is normally the FBI, or external fraud monitoring. So of 156 days of dwell time, only 19% of the time is the company themselves, the ones that identify that the issue happens. A third party has to tell them this. So it is important to note that many of these companies take information security very seriously, with compliance requirements, appropriate budgets, and, well, one would assume appropriate budgets, and talented security personnel. Some reported examples are actually like Michael's credit card breach in 2014. The dwell time was 8 months. The infamous Home Depot credit card breach, it was in 2014. That dwell time was 5 months during the busy shopping season. PF Chang's was 11 months. And then, of course, the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, was more than a year that the dwell time occurred in which the attackers were on the system. And if you're not familiar with the Office of Personnel Management, those of us that have or had security clearances were part of that database. So many of us received those letters. It's important to note that unlike ransomware attacks, website defacements, or DDoS attacks, they are intentionally loud to bring attention to the activity. Persistent compromises that involve dwell time, they work to remain stealth as long as possible to obtain as much of that valuable data as they possibly can over a long period of time. The longer they're there, the more this information that they can get. One of the sources of this issue are organizations that rely solely on static-based protections, such as conventional antivirus and maybe firewalls. That was the IT security posture in probably 2002. It didn't work very well then, and it's definitely not working very well now, because advanced attackers rely on undetectable malware to evade these static controls. In some instances, depending on the value of the target, the malware may be developed or specifically altered for that organization, which almost guarantees that static-based protections are just not going to be effective. If the antivirus companies have never seen the sample, there's no way that they can develop any type of virus detection for that sample. So, advanced threats require some additional efforts. If you want to find and root out this dwell time, you're going to have to start hunting for some of this undetected malware in network communications. Some simple ways that you can do this, depending on how many internet connections you have: closely monitor and restrict your outgoing internet communications. Leave it only for what is essential, such as web activity or secure web activity, whether it's HTTP 80 or 443. Outside of that, think about whether or not other types of communications really need to leave your network. Consider blocking uncategorized or unknown websites. And the reason for that is most malware has to communicate with what we call a command and control, the mothership that tells it how to operate and what to do. Most of these command and controls are not going to be categorized as a specific type of website. Therefore, if you block that, the malware can't communicate with the command and control. Therefore, it's ineffective. And also start hunting for intruders within your network, or at least their malware. There are some great starting points for doing this from SANS that I'm going to have in the show notes, but start looking for undetected malware. Start looking for behaviors that are just not normal that are on your network. You may find that there's been an intruder there for quite some time. So the goal of ruling out dwell time and to do the malware hunting and to block network communications that aren't needed is just to take the additional steps in an effort to have an honest answer to the question of, are our systems compromised? If we're relying just on antivirus and firewall rules or alerts, most people aren't going to have the confidence to say, yes, I'm certain that we're not compromised, unless they take some of these additional steps. So some takeaways. Advanced attacks are often going to circumvent any traditional static protections that you have in place. This provides the ability for an extensive dwell time of attackers on your network. So what's extensive? Anything over a week is extensive. Think how much data can be pulled off of your network in a week's worth of time. So if you extrapolate that out to 6 months or even 3 months, how much damage can be done by an attacker that's on your network that you never detect? So put into place some additional network controls. So as I mentioned, if the malware cannot communicate out, it cannot communicate properly. Therefore, it's just not going to be effective. And just hunt for some of the previously detected malware that you may have on your systems. I appreciate your time listening to Dwell Time. So some upcoming speaking engagements, as you've heard me mention in the past. I will be speaking on ransomware at the TSCPA Healthcare Conference in Nashville on October 6th. Mark Burnett, shareholder here at LBMC Security, will be giving his Dear President Trump, Top Ways to Secure the U.S. talk at InfoSec Nashville on September 19th. There's going to be more details in the show notes. And as of now, on October 18th of 2017, I will be speaking at the Utility Technology Association in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, on effective incident response. So in closing, thank you for listening. Tune in next week. I want to talk about some of the risks as to allowing terminal services to be open to the internet. This week, we're working a large compromise that may involve a lot of PII, and there's been some articles coming out about the risk of allowing convenient remote access into servers and into systems. We really need to talk about that. To learn more about LBMC Security and the services we provide, please visit lbmcsecurity.com and have a great week.